I was originally the young master of a wealthy family, lost in the outside world. By the age of 18, I had already become a lifetime honorary professor at Harbin Institute of Technology. On the day of my graduation, the country even dispatched 300 armored vehicles to escort me. That day, I went down to the mine for duty, but when I came back out, I was found by my biological parents. My wealthy father pinched his nose at me and said to the person next to him, "Prepare another car for him. Don't let him dirty my back seat." My biological mother tried to suppress her disgust and reluctantly asked, "Son, you've suffered over the years. Wait until you come home and clean up. I will take good care of you." After that, they hurriedly got into the car and left. Accompanying them was their adopted daughter, Daisy Wu. She looked at me, then at her pink Maserati, and finally sighed as she got into the car. When I returned to the Liu Tran family home, I didn't see my biological parents. Instead, I found a guy around my age named Liu Qinghai who had been mistaken for me and had become the fake young master. He grabbed my hand and smiled brightly. "Should I call you brother?" "Don't worry, I won't play any games about distinguishing the real from the fake. From now on, we are brothers, and we must live in harmony." Saying that, he shoved a fruit knife into my hand, pulling my hand to stab himself, but he was too weak to do it. He looked at me with innocent blinking eyes and continued to pull. I pointed at the phone hanging on my chest and said briefly, "People often record beautiful moments of life nowadays." Liu Qinghai was frightened and immediately let go of my hand. At that moment, Daisy Wu, who had just parked the car, also walked in. Seeing me holding the knife and Liu Qinghai looking terrified, her expression immediately turned strange. I was too lazy to explain and casually shoved the knife into Liu Qinghai's hand. He immediately smiled ingratiatingly. "Sister, you're back. I asked Aunt Wang to prepare lotus seed porridge for you. I'll go get it right now." "No need." Daisy Wu shook her head and then turned to ask me, "Victor Trong, are you hungry?" "I don't want to eat." I walked over to the sofa and lay down, pulling out snacks from my backpack and stuffing them into my mouth in a bored manner. This was my state of living. If I could sit, I would never stand. If I could lie down, I would never sit. "Are you sleepy?" Daisy Wu asked with concern. "It's just normal." I continued to eat, took out my tablet, typing code with my left hand while scrolling through videos on my phone with my right, occasionally stuffing snacks into my mouth. Daisy Wu and Liu Qinghai looked at me as if I were a monster, especially Liu Qinghai. He stepped closer and pretended to be enthusiastic, saying, "Brother, you've worked hard over the years. You don't know the rules of the rich. If others see you like this, the Liu Tran family will lose face. But don't worry, I'll teach you etiquette. No need for that. From what I see, Ivy is also your biological parent. You should meet them at least once, otherwise I wouldn't come back to this house." Shouldn't he want to meet his biological parents too? But Liu Qinghai twitched his mouth, his eyes turning red immediately. "Brother, if you don't like me being at the Liu Tran family, I can leave." What a show. I could see through him. He said he wouldn't compete for status, but he actually still wanted to fight. But fight over what? Wealth? I had no interest. I really wanted to say outright that I didn't care about money, but he definitely wouldn't believe me, because ordinary people wouldn't believe it either, so I was too lazy to explain. Ivy came over and sat next to me, saying, "Mother and father said they would be going abroad for a few days, and when they come back, they will make it up to you. So please don't think too much." I nodded, still in a state where my soul could leave my body at any moment. Ivy sighed and turned to ask Liu Tran, "Is the room ready?" Liu Tran looked troubled. "It's still being prepared, but I value my brother very much, so I want to prepare it well." "Sister, how about today he sleeps in the living room first?" Ivy shot him a glance and immediately saw through his intentions. "Victor Trong just got back. How can he sleep in the living room? He's family, not a guest." Liu Tran immediately put on a pitiful face. "I know, sister, in this house, I'm the only outsider." Saying that, he started to cry. I saw Ivy roll her eyes. I wanted to roll my eyes too, but I was too lazy. "I can sleep anywhere as long as there's a window for ventilation," I said casually. Ivy breathed a sigh of relief, seeming to find me not so hard to please. "You can choose a room, any room except for mother and father's. I'll arrange a room for you tomorrow." Liu Tran hurriedly said, "Sister, I can also arrange a room for him." But Ivy ignored him and just said to me, "I have to go to work at the company this afternoon. If anything comes up, wait until I come back tonight to talk." "Okay," I lazily replied and continued to lie on the sofa. Ivy shook her head, seemingly helpless with my laziness, and soon left. It seemed that her position at the company was very important. After she left, Liu Tran said to me, "Brother, can I take you to a nice room?" I'm sure you'll be satisfied. I reluctantly got up. If I could lie around in the living room, I definitely wouldn't leave. I really didn't want to move at all. Regarding Leo Tran's eagerness, I knew he was definitely planning something, but I didn't care. As expected, he took me to a room on the second floor. The room smelled fragrant. The dressing table was full of skincare products. The bed was covered with light pink sheets, and there was even a picture of Ivy on the dressing table. I glanced at Leo Tran helplessly, thinking, "Kid, do you really think I'm too dumb to realize this is Ivy's room?" But Leo Tran pretended not to know, smiling and saying, "Brother, if you like this place, just rest here." "Okay." I nodded, knowing he was playing tricks, but I was really too lazy to look for another room. I just wanted to take a shower and lie down on the bed. Leo Tran couldn't help but smile, then quickly slipped out as if afraid I would change my mind. So I took a shower and then lay on the bed, motionless. In the evening, I was awakened by a light cough. It was Ivy. She was wearing a black business suit, standing coldly in front of the bed, as if waiting for me to explain. She was wearing a black business suit, standing coldly in front of the bed, as if waiting for me to explain. Leo Tran stood beside her, softly saying, "Sister, I'm out of options. He insists on staying in your room. I told him you have a cleanliness obsession, but he wouldn't listen. Is it comfortable?" Ivy was silent for a long time before suddenly asking this question. I thought she would be angry. After all, Leo Tran had been provoking me quite a bit. I rubbed my eyes and seriously nodded. "Very comfortable. The fragrance of the river helps me sleep well." "Then just sleep here." Ivy looked at me in surprise, seemingly not expecting that I knew the river's fragrance could help with sleep. Leo Tran felt a bit wronged. "Sister, before when I entered your room, you were already unhappy. How can he sleep here? You have a cleanliness obsession, yet you let him sleep on your bed and even eat on your bed?" Why? I was too lazy to answer. Just took out my phone and started scrolling through videos. Leo Tran felt like a clown, but he didn't leave, as if he really wanted to see how I could eat on Ivy's bed. Too lazy to answer. Just took out my phone and started scrolling through videos. Leo Tran felt like a clown, but he didn't leave, as if he really wanted to see how I could eat on Ivy's bed. Not long after, Daisy Wu pushed a food cart in. The cart had a small table that could be pulled out to serve as a dining table. Ivy just needed to sit up to eat. Ivy groggily sat up, rinsed her mouth first, and then started to eat. Daisy Wu sat at the desk, handling company work, completely not glancing at Ivy even once. Leo Tran came over, picked up a glass of juice from the food cart. Ivy knew he was planning something, likely to spill juice on the bed, and then accuse Ivy of having a cleanliness obsession to Daisy Wu. Ivy didn't know how Daisy Wu would react, but one thing was certain. If he disrupted Ivy, she would have to change rooms, and she was too lazy to go anywhere. So, Ivy raised her phone, aiming it directly at him. UT to pour the juice when he paused, immediately changing his attitude and bringing the glass of juice in front of Ivy. "Drink the juice." "I don't want to." Ivy glanced over at Tina Nguyen. Just then, Tina Nguyen looked over as well. In that brief moment of eye contact, Ivy realized Tina Nguyen had very beautiful eyes, deep as if they could see through everything. "Leo Tran, you're about to take your college entrance exams. Aren't you worried about your studies?" Tina Nguyen spoke up. The corner of Leo Tran's mouth twitched, knowing Tina Nguyen was subtly pushing him away, and he had no choice but to leave the room. After Ivy finished eating, the maid came in to clean up. Ivy continued programming with her left hand while scrolling through her phone with her right, and before she knew it, 3 hours had passed. Ivy felt sleepy again and decided to take a shower before going back to sleep. At that moment, Tina Nguyen had also just finished her tasks. She walked over and placed a bottle of medicine at the head of the bed, a traditional herbal supplement for brain health and vitamin C. She walked over and placed a bottle of medicine at the head of the bed, a traditional herbal supplement for brain health and vitamin C. "Thank you." I looked at her with suspicion. How strange. How did she know I needed a brain boost? But she had already left the room, so I was too lazy to ask. I took a shower, took my medicine, and quickly fell asleep. In the following days, I hardly left my room. Leo Tran always wanted to pick a fight with me, but there was no opportunity. On the contrary, Tina Nguyen was in the room handling work every day, but the two of us hardly spoke. Until today, I was still sleeping when suddenly my blanket was yanked away. I jolted awake to find my biological parents had returned. The one who pulled the blanket was my father. "How can you sleep here?" Luo Wang shouted angrily. "Brother, even though she is just an adopted daughter, you should still pay attention to your image. What would outsiders think if they knew you, the true young master of the Liu family, just came back and slept in your sister's room? The reputation of the Liu family cannot be tarnished like this." Leo Tran immediately added fuel to the fire. Tai Lung was sobbing, heartbroken, saying, "Oh my God, how did my biological son end up like this?" I don't want to live anymore, Luo Wang shouted angrily. You are at an age to study. Why do you only have indecent thoughts in your head? Get up now. I casually pulled the blanket back over myself and tapped a few times on my phone. The lights in the room went out, and the projector turned on. On the screen was the surveillance video from the moment Leo Tran brought me in here until now. I was too lazy to explain, but didn't want to be wronged. My parents glanced at Leo Tran, their expressions slightly changing. But then my father said, your younger brother brought you here to provide you with a good environment, but you should also know to avoid some things. My mother sighed. After all, you grew up in the countryside without any rules, and you don't think of others. I realized they didn't care who was right or wrong. They simply didn't like me. But if they didn't like me, why had they gone to the trouble of finding me before? I felt helpless, but didn't want to say anything more. Fortunately, Tina and Gwen returned to help me diffuse the situation. When they left, I heard Luo Wang say something unpleasant. You must know how to maintain your image. In the future, you will have to marry for the family. If your reputation is ruined, you will lose your value. I looked at Tina and Gwen and saw her face when she heard that statement was devoid of emotion, as if she had died. Not long after, I was called down for dinner. At the dining table, my parents sat sandwiched between Leo Tran. They looked like a complete family of three, and Leo Tran was very clever, always knowing how to say things that pleased my parents. Therefore, they often looked at me with disappointed eyes, then turned to Leo Tran with satisfaction, as if to compare. Suddenly, Leo Tran asked, Victor Truong, did you study at a rural school? Have you graduated? I replied indifferently. Luo Wang frowned. You and Leo Tran are the same age. He's still in the 12th grade, and you've already graduated? What did you study? Computer science and welding, I answered honestly. Luo Wang slammed the table and shouted, how can a child of the Liu family study such manual labor like welding? It's truly embarrassing. Tai Lung hurriedly said, Leo Tran is currently in the 12th grade at Teton High School. You should also go there to study for half a year. Even if you don't get into a good university, your parents can donate a building to help you get into a good school and graduate. But I've already graduated. I wanted to tell them that I had once studied in the talented youth class at Harbin Institute of Technology, graduated a long time ago, and even started working. I had only returned home to visit, and soon I would have to go back to work. But my workplace had a very high level of confidentiality that couldn't be disclosed. And since I was too lazy to explain, I didn't bother to say anything. Luo Wang slammed the table again and shouted, do you dare to argue? I've decided. Tomorrow you'll go to Not Trung to register. Oh my, do they want to send me back to the training mill again? Moreover, if I remembered correctly, during my graduation from Harbin Institute of Technology, I had once gone to Not Trung to guide teaching. I was really curious about what expression the principal of Not Trung would have when he saw me coming to his school to study. At this moment, guests arrived, a family of three. The middle-aged couple looked very wealthy, and there was a young man about Tina Ng. No corresponding translation found for this file. I noticed that when Tina Nguyen saw him, her expression turned very ugly. Could this be her fiancé? At this point, both sides had finished greeting each other. The middle-aged couple seemed to value Leo Tran very much, while the young man kept staring at Tina Nguyen, occasionally licking his lips, looking truly despicable. Luo Wang saw that I wasn't getting up and frowned, saying, this is Victor Truong. He will change his surname to Luo in the future. He is my lost biological son, just found, not familiar with the rules. After that, he asked me to greet them. I lazily called out, uncle, aunt, in a perfunctory manner. Leo Tran then said, brother, this is our future brother-in-law. I looked at that despicable man, then at Tina Nguyen's pale face. I stood up. It seemed Tina Nguyen looked at me, her eyes pleading for help. I stepped in front of her, lifted her chin, and kissed her. The atmosphere immediately froze. Everyone turned to stone. I stood straight, placed my hand on Tina Nguyen's shoulder, looked at them, and said, let me introduce, this is my girlfriend. The room fell silent as if dead. That disgusting man immediately rushed towards me, conveniently shouting his name, Xian Chu. Do you dare to kiss my fiancé? Xian Chu yelled, grabbing a plate from the table. I also conveniently pushed Lu Qinghai forward. Crash! The plate smashed directly into Lu Qinghai's head, shattering into pieces. Leo Tran screamed in pain, clutching his head and crying, blood streaming through his fingers. I pulled Tina Nguyen behind me and lazily said to them, Tina Nguyen and I have been together for a long time. I'm even living in her room. If you don't believe me, just ask everyone. Luo Wang was so furious he couldn't speak. Tai Lung seemed to be the tearful type. She sat down heavily in her chair and cried. This family is truly unfortunate. The Xianchu family also felt awkward and quickly left. The room fell silent again. I held Tina Nguyen's hand, feeling her tremble, unsure if it was from fear or emotion. Luo Wang glared at me and said, "Do you want to die?" "Not want to," I replied in a cold tone. "Tina Nguyen is my girlfriend. No one is allowed to take her away." After saying that, I pulled her away. Translation not found. Translation not found. Translation not found. "Not want to," I replied in a cold tone. "Tina Nguyen is my girlfriend. No one is allowed to take her away." After saying that, I pulled her away, not giving them a chance to refute. Back in the room, Tina Nguyen and I sat on the bed, staring at each other. "I know you don't want to marry into the family." I hesitated for a long time before saying this. Tina Nguyen bit her lip, looking very beautiful. Just that simple action of biting her lip was enough to make me want to kiss her again. What was the feeling like when I kissed her just now? Soft, cool, as if there was some kind of attraction. "Why did you help me?" Finally, Tina Nguyen asked. "You have a cleanliness obsession. My parents think I'm dirty, but you were willing to let me sit in your car. Your room is so clean and tidy, and even though I'm a mess, you still let me sleep here. You care about me, knowing I'm overwhelmed. After all, you've treated me well, so I want to treat you well too." This is what my parents taught me. I emphasized, I said adoptive parents, not biological parents. "So what should we do in the future?" Daisy Tran asked again. "Can you protect me for the rest of my life?" "Of course, as long as you want. I will take you to a place where no one will dare to control your life anymore." I nodded firmly. Daisy Tran parted her lips, seemingly wanting to say something, but ultimately held back. I really wanted to know what she was thinking, but I didn't know how to ask. The next day, Daisy Tran woke me up. She was sleeping right next to me, but we didn't do anything. In fact, I had a bit of a mischievous mind, but I was so tired that I fell asleep as soon as I lay down. After washing my face, we went downstairs. I held Daisy Tran's hand, mainly to deter my biological parents from trying to force her into a marriage alliance. When they saw me, their faces were quite unpleasant, especially Luo Wang. After Daisy Tran sat down, he immediately said, "Daisy Tran, your position at the company has been revoked, and your card will be locked." Tai Lung gently advised, "Serena Nu, listen to your parents and agree to the marriage alliance. We all know that Victor Truong is just putting on a show for you." They weren't completely foolish. They could still recognize that. "Daisy Tran, I have suspended your position in the industry, and you will lose all your face. I have also locked your card, and you will no longer be able to live the luxurious life you were accustomed to. Are you sure you can handle that?" Daisy Tran bowed her head and said nothing, quietly eating her breakfast. This was a silent act of defiance. I reached into my pocket, found a card, placed it in front of Daisy Tran, and said, "Feel free to use it." Leo Tran's lips twitched, and he couldn't help but laugh. "Brother, how much money can you have coming for the countryside? Aren't your adoptive parents just minors? I'm not looking down on them, but can minors really be rich? I'm not looking down on them, but can minors really be rich? I'm not looking down on them, but can minors really be rich?" I looked at him coldly and said, "The minors you speak of are your biological parents." Leo Tran's face immediately stiffened, but then he said, "The grace of birth is not as great as the grace of nurturing. Lu parents, in my heart, you two are my real parents. Lu parents, in my heart, you two are my real parents." Leo Tran's adoptive parents nodded, but I could see the contempt in their eyes towards him. A person who doesn't even acknowledge their own biological parents, who would sincerely value his feelings. I felt heartbroken for my adoptive parents, because they had always hoped Leo Tran would return. Leo Tran then looked at me and said, "But brother, you are from the Lu family, and the future responsibilities of the family will fall on us. You must work hard." "But brother, you are from the Lu family, and the future responsibilities of the family will fall on us. You must work hard. Or should we just let my sister go through with the marriage alliance?" I looked at him deeply and replied, "If I stop talking, I might resort to violence, so don't provoke me." It seemed he remembered being kicked by me yesterday, and didn't dare to say anything more. Lu's parents also ceased their interference. It was clear that although they didn't like me, they still cared about me, because I was of Lu blood, the legitimate heir of their family. No matter how favored Leo Tran was, they would never hand the family over to him. My adoptive parents had once told me that families with deep roots like the Lu family place great importance on bloodlines. After breakfast, Lu's parents suggested taking me to school. Leo Tran quickly said, "Mom and Dad, I'm familiar with the school. Let me take my brother. You don't need to trouble yourselves." But Tai Lung immediately opposed, "No, our son is starting school today. If we aren't there, others will look down on him. That's right, not only must we take him, but the entire school should know he is our biological son." Leo Tran clenched his fists, his face looking very grim, but he didn't dare to refute. More than an hour later, the car stopped in front of the gate of Not Trung School. The new students lined up obediently to enter the school gate. The school leadership was already waiting at the entrance, even hanging a banner that read, "Welcome General Luo Wang for your visit and guidance." I remembered that the last time I came here, the banner said, "Welcome General Ko for your visit and guidance." The word general back then referred not to the CEO, but to the chief engineer. This time, it changed to General Luo Wang, perhaps because they knew I was from the Liu family. After all, to process my enrollment, the school had received my application, including a photo. Yeah, this is quite impressive. They even have the school leaders personally welcoming my brother for enrollment. Leo Tran immediately flattered. He thought the banner was to welcome Luo Wang. After all, to process my enrollment, the school had received my application, including a photo. Luo Wang instantly perked up, but in his heart, he seemed a bit confused, as the principal of a key provincial school would not give him such a warm welcome. Mom and Dad, I usually perform very well, so it's understandable that the school values me. After all, I've contributed a bit, but I won't be complacent. I will continue to work hard. Tai Lung nodded in approval. Leo Tran is truly wonderful. Victor Truong, you should learn more from your younger brother. Luo Wang said nothing because he knew that even the students considered the best in Tan Bac were not treated with such importance by the school, let alone receive such a grand welcome. Daisy Tran quietly walked over to me and softly asked, "What is going on?" I smiled faintly. "They are just here to welcome me." I smiled faintly. "They are just here to welcome me." Then I realized that Daisy Tran actually believed it. She genuinely thought so. We continued walking forward. Luo Wang reached out to the principal, smiling. "Principal Kong, I didn't expect you to take such an interest." But Principal Kong ignored him and walked straight up to me, extending his hand and saying, "Knowing you returned to visit your hometown, we sent an invitation but were turned down. I never expected you to enroll at Not Trong as a student. I never expected you to enroll at Not Trong as a student." At this moment, several computer teachers hurried over, first shaking my hand, then unable to restrain themselves from asking all sorts of tricky questions. My adoptive parents and Leo Tran were left dumbfounded. In contrast, Daisy Tran was not too surprised. She just looked at me with a smile in her eyes. Luo Wang couldn't help but ask, "Principal Kong, are you mistaken? He is my son." Principal Kong nodded and said, "I know. That's why I changed the wording on the welcome banner from General Ko to General Luo Wang." "What do you mean he's a general?" Hearing this, Luo Wang felt dizzy. But Principal Kong didn't answer and only mysteriously said, "Let's go inside and talk. This isn't the right place for discussions." After that, we were led to the small auditorium of Not Trong, and Principal Kong even arranged for me to sit in the center. Not only that, they had prepared a lot of pastries and candies for me. Luo Wang once again anxiously asked, "Principal Kong, what is going on?" Principal Kong smiled slightly, looking at Luo Wang with a strange expression, then explained, "Mr. Liu, don't you know how outstanding your biological son is?" Luo Wang also wanted to know, but he truly had no idea. Since discovering I was his biological son, he and his wife hadn't looked into it further because, in their eyes, I was just a child raised by minors. Therefore, they had never placed expectations or valued me. Leo Tran couldn't help but step forward and ask, "Principal, why did you let him into the school?" Principal Kong coldly pointed outside and shouted, "Get out! No one is allowed to enter without my permission." Leo Tran's mouth fell open, his face turning pale. Previously, he had boasted that the school valued him due to his excellent performance. But at this moment, his face felt like it had been slapped hard. He quietly left. But Principal Kong cast a glance at Tina Nguyen. I quickly said, "She is my girlfriend." Upon hearing this, Principal Kong immediately nodded, and his attitude towards Tina Nguyen became much more polite. Luo Wang continued to question, "Principal, what exactly is going on? Please clarify." Principal Kong slowly replied, "Victor Truong, Chief Engineer Gua, entered the youth class of Harbin Institute of Technology at the age of 11. 2 years later, he started working and within a year was in charge of the entire project. 3 years ago, Chief Engineer Guo returned home to visit his family and once came to my school to guide teaching. The achievements that Nathan Chung has made in the field of computers are all thanks to the foundation laid by Chief Engineer Guo." After finishing, Principal Kong looked at Luo Wang with a strange expression. "Mr. Luo, you are the biological father of Victor Truong, yet you know nothing about your son and even let him attend Nathan Chung. Outsiders might think you are insulting me." Luo Wang was stunned, his eyes wide open like bells. Tai Lung was not much better off. Even Tina Nguyen looked at me in astonishment. "Are you really that impressive?" I nodded, too lazy to explain, silently enjoying a pastry while casually offering a piece to Tina Nguyen. Even Tina Nguyen looked at me in astonishment. Are you really that impressive? I nodded, too lazy to explain, silently enjoying a pastry while casually offering a piece to Tina Nguyen. Luo Wang awkwardly said, we just brought Victor Truong home, so we don't know much about him yet. Nevertheless, when he looked at me, his eyes were filled with pride. Tai Lung also appeared much more affectionate. Although I no longer needed to study at Nathan Chung, since I was here, I should help them solve some technical issues. Throughout this process, Luo Wang and Tai Lung followed me around the school. Some students recognized them and rushed over to greet them. At that moment, they proudly introduced, this is our biological son. He is here to provide technical guidance. I also noticed Leo Tran lurking not far away, his gaze dark and fixed on me. In short, it was not until dusk that I was finally released to go home. On the way back, I was sandwiched between Luo Wang and Tai Lung. They didn't know what to say to me, but their faces clearly showed pride. Except when working, I was inherently lazy, even reluctant to talk, so I just closed my eyes to rest. However, I sensed someone was watching me. When I opened my eyes, I caught Leo Tran's envious gaze. Upon arriving home, Luo Wang and Tai Lung immediately wanted to call everyone to inform them of my existence. I reminded them that they could say I had once studied in the youth class or was an expert in the field of computers, but not to elaborate too much for safety reasons. They immediately understood and happily ran off to boast to others. I lay on the sofa fiddling with my phone, while Tina Nguyen sat beside me, occasionally handing me pastries. Leo Tran quietly paced back and forth, his expression grim. But in the end, he said nothing. At dinner time, the whole family gathered in the dining room. Leo Tran immediately spoke up. Parents, I will definitely become as outstanding as he is. Tai Lung frowned and coldly replied, your brother entered the gifted class at 11, and you are already 18 now. Her tone became sharp. Leo Tran, you must understand that sometimes no matter how hard you try, you cannot surpass talent. Luo Wang nodded in agreement. If you work hard, you might get into Tanhua or Back Dai, but if you don't, it's okay. They no longer held expectations for Leo Tran. Previously, they needed him to maintain the family's reputation, but now it was no longer necessary, as academically no one could surpass me. Leo Tran's face turned extremely ugly, his eyes red and glaring at me, as if he wanted to spit fire. Luo Wang and Tai Lung also noticed this. Leo Tran, you should clarify your identity. Luo Wang reminded him. The Leo family can keep you out of courtesy. If you dare to harm Victor Truong, don't blame us for being rude. Leo Tran seemed to fall into despair, gripping a fruit knife tightly, his eyes filled with hatred as he looked at me. Just then, the maid, who had only arrived 3 days ago, suddenly pulled out a gun from her coat. This maid had been arranged by my superiors to protect me upon learning I would return to the Leo family. She aimed the gun at Leo Tran and coldly said, if you show any hostility towards the chief engineer Gua, I will shoot you on the spot. Luo Wang and Tai Lung were stunned, completely unprepared for someone to be protecting me in the house. Tina Nguyen also looked a bit frightened, leaning closer to me. I waved to signal the maid to step back, then looked directly at Leo Tran and said, you are worried that my return will take everything from you, right? But the reality is that whether I am here or not, as long as it is established that you are not a member of the Leo family, everything belonging to the Leo family has nothing to do with you. They would rather leave their assets to anyone in the clan than to you. This is an unchangeable fact. Moreover, I don't care about money, as our goals are completely different. Finally, I advised him, don't think about killing me. Otherwise, you will be the one who dies. Besides having someone protecting me in the villa, there's also a sniper watching this place. I thought for a moment and added, oh right, there's something that perhaps everyone doesn't know. My foster parents are not miners. They are actually the owners of that coal mine. In fact, they're even richer than the Leo family. These words once again left everyone in the Leo family speechless. But didn't you go down to the mine yourself that day? The safety system in the mine was designed by me. I went down to inspect and adjust it. You have all seen how lazy I am. How could I possibly go mining? I felt helpless at their assumptions. Are you saying my biological parents are very wealthy? That's right. But I remind you, we also have younger siblings. You will get what you are entitled to, and I advise you not to fight for what does not belong to you. They once thought I grew up in poverty, but in reality, I have lived in one of the wealthiest families, and my foster parents love me very much. My siblings also have a good relationship with me. The card I gave to Tina Nguyen has a balance that, at the current exchange rate, must be worth several billion. For me, Money has never been an issue, and I have never lacked love. I had to go back immediately. It's up to you. I replied indifferently, as I had anticipated this outcome. Half a month later, I was urgently summoned. Tina Nguyen, whom I had chosen as my life assistant, also accompanied me. Before leaving, I returned home. My foster parents seemed a bit unhappy. After asking, I learned it was because Leo Tran was too treacherous and wanted to fight for assets as soon as he returned. In fact, I felt a bit awkward, as theoretically, this was no longer my concern. My foster parents noticed my confusion and comforted me not to think too much. They said that in their hearts, I would always be their biological son. After learning about my relationship with Tina Nguyen, they immediately prepared gifts for her. My foster parents were quite straightforward, directly gifting money and real estate, leaving Tina Nguyen stunned. Before leaving, I met Leo Tran one last time, but this conversation was more of a warning, reminding him to know his place. Even so, I could clearly see his ambitions were too great and extremely selfish, but I truly did not have time to worry about these matters. That night, I left and continued my work. 3 years later, Tina Nguyen and I finally had our first vacation. We returned to the Leo Tran family, officially acknowledging our ancestry. After that, both families met to discuss the marriage between me and Tina Nguyen, but due to my special status, the wedding was held very discreetly, even without inviting relatives from the family. What surprised me was how much Leo Tran had changed. He had become more composed, no longer harboring the selfish thoughts he once had. It turned out that my younger brother, who lived with my foster parents, had taught him a few lessons which had completely restrained him. After all, they are people of means, and to reach where they are today, they must have gone through countless challenges. A few petty tricks from him could hardly make a difference. Moreover, people change according to their living environment. The Leo Tran family is very pragmatic, always weighing the benefits in everything they do, which is why Leo Tran had become selfish and calculating. However, after spending a long time in my foster parents' home, he gradually changed. Tina Nguyen and I stayed at home for 7 days before heading to the capital to report on our work. After more than 3 months of hard work, we returned to our unit. A few more years of diligent effort later, as the project was nearing completion, Tina Nguyen became pregnant. It was then that I finally had a break.